Hello! So this evening we're going to do a short flight in the FSR500 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the aircraft that came out last week. I did a very short first look at it, but I didn't really go into any great depth, and I made a couple of omissions in the video and took quite a lot of flack for the things that I either missed or didn't cover. So we're going to go back and do a proper flight with it, and we'll have a look around some of those features. So if we go and jump inside and go and look at the tablet, you can see I've already pulled a flight plan in. So we're flying from Boonville over to Ells Willits and putting a waypoint in the way, but more interesting, I think, if we go and have a look at Navigraph, we're actually going to do an RNAV approach that has a hold in it. So we'll have a little look at the avionics as well to see how we do that. In terms of charts, Navigraph really doesn't have any charts for this, so obviously the data is there in terms of the approach exists, but the chart isn't there, so Little Navmap comes in quite useful for that, as well as obviously looking at the instructions here in Navigraph, but Little Navmap actually beats it in this case because it shows you the restrictions. So we're going to hopefully get to kind of 6,000 feet by the time we get out to the Hermit waypoint, and then enter into the hold and see how we get on. Okay, so let's go and get inside the aeroplane. So we've got some ground ops stuff we can do. We've got passengers. I'm going to get rid of the passengers. I really don't want any passengers because they're just a pain in the backside with this aeroplane. You end up having to obsess over the passenger status, and they delay the flight because they complain about the temperature all the time. They say they're hungry or thirsty. They say they're cold. And I can show you how the controls work in the aeroplane to maintain that. But yeah, they're just a pain in the backside, basically. I don't think we have any maintenance to do. I've only really flown the aircraft for a few minutes, so we'll see how we get on. Okay, let's just check the realism. I think I've got most things on except for, allowing payload changes during flight. I've said don't do that. In my mind that should be the other way around, but anyway. Okay, so if we go and get the airplane up and running, so the first thing we're going to do is turn the battery on and then put the fuel pumps and the ignition on manual. We'll go over and put the nav light on to tell anybody outside that we are in the aircraft and setting things up, and you will see the primary flight display is already booted up. It's got a raft of things to check on it already, which is all well and good. We'll just wait for that to boot up for a few moments. So it's debatable on at Boonville if the runway's long enough to take off without flaps. We're going to go for the short field procedure and go for 20-degree flaps, but we'll get there in a moment. Okay, so this is taking a while to boot up. Give it a few seconds. It's just doing the AHRS alignment, which is the inertial navigation system. There we go. So it is slowly coming to life. Okay, shall we get the engine started? So we've already got the nav light on. We will go and put the strobes really shouldn't be used until the runway. We'll put the taxi light on, I guess, just to light up and tell people that we are doing things. Then we go and press the start button, and it's a fully automated startup in this aircraft essentially. So what we're now going to do is wait and watch the numbers here. Wait for the propeller to speed up. Wait for the NG numbers to come up. And then once they're rising, you can advance the fuel condition lever all the way through and wait for the engine to fire up. So once that's done, we can go and turn the generator on and the alternator, and then turn on the avionics. We can hit the button down here, which pulls the rest of the avionics on. And you can see now we've got the radio frequencies have come up as well. Okay, so you can see us on the map down here at D83, and you can see there's the Hermit waypoint, and there's the place we're going to. Ells Willits is 028. Okay, so while we're sat here with the engine ticking over, let's go and have a little look in here. Actually, something else before we get to that. If you do want to warm the cabin up, if you've got passengers on board, you can turn the air conditioning on, and you can spin the climate control round to, to warm it up however you want to. If you want to pressurize the cabin, if you know you're going to be going up to a higher altitude, what you would typically do is go and set your target altitude. So we'll just do that anyway, because we are going to do it. We're going to fly up to 6,000 feet. We won't need it for 6,000, but I'll show you how it works anyway. Okay, so if you are wanting to pressurize the cabin, you push this plunger in for the bleed air. So it turns the bleed air on, so in other words the cabin gets a positive air pressure. But it's fully automatic, the system. If you go and look in the... where is it? Oh, it's on here actually. Yeah, you can see the pressure within the cabin and the rate of change and the difference in PSI between the outside and the inside. Okay, so we'll go and put the flaps on 20 degrees while we're here. We're on a fairly short field. And let's go and program this route just so you see how this works. So we do a flight plan and we press the middle knob and then roll down to the line underneath origin, and we click on the little keyboard icon, type in D83, and that will give us Boonville, and press enter. We're going to take off. If we roll the inner knob, we can take off on runway 31, enter, and then enter to accept, and then we can roll further down. We need to put the destination in first before the en route. I'm not sure if that's a bug in the simulator or if the real unit operates like this, but you need to put the destination in first, otherwise it messes up. So 028 is Ells Willits, so press enter, and then the runway will come into Ells Willits is runway 34, so press enter and enter to accept. And now we can put in our en route. So if you remember, we're going to Savjo, but before we do that we're going to do the procedure. Yeah, just to make this make sense. Okay, so if we go to procedure and we're going to select an approach route, so press enter. We want the RNAV for runway 34, so we roll down to it and press enter. And we want to do the Hermit transition, so enter. Fly the course reversal, so it's basically saying do we want to put the hold in at Hermit, so we'll say yes. We won't bother with the minimums, and we'll come all the way down, rolling the knob, and go activate and enter. So we've now got some of our route in. So if we clear out that, I've pulled up a dialog I didn't want there. So if we press the button again to get the cursor back in here, and we want to put an en route waypoint in, so we will roll the inner knob on here, click on the keyboard and type in Savjo, and then press enter, and it's put that waypoint in successfully. So then we can press flight plan to come back out. We can zoom out and you can see our little route there. So we're taking off from Boonville, flying out to Savjo, then over to the point where we go into the hold, where we'll stay until we come out of the hold, and then carry on down the RNAV into Ells Willits. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward stuff, and we're going to climb out to 6,000 feet immediately. We'll play with the autopilot and do a flight level change to get there. Okay, so it's complaining that the pitot heat is off, so that's overhead. The pitot heat is up here. Normally you wouldn't do that until you have taxi to the runway, but we'll do it now. It's saying the ignition is on. These are informational. If they're white, they are not warnings. So we haven't got takeoff config. So what that's referring to is this rudder trim here. We need to move the rudder trim to the right to combat the torque for takeoff. So there we go. So you can see that warning has now gone away. It's saying the fuel pumps are on at the moment, and that's because for takeoff and landing you put the fuel pumps and the ignition on manual, and then when you're in cruise you switch them to auto. Okay, so we're just about ready to go. There's not much to do in this aeroplane, a lot of it is done for you, which is really nice. Okay, so we'll come off the parking brake. We will now have a look down here. Everything's looking good. Let's advance the throttles gently. So let's turn the head tracking on because it's really useful for taxiing. Just rolling out to the runway here at Boonville. So full throttle. You'll notice the torque is flashing red at the top of the engine instruments there. So I need to keep an eye outside to make sure we stay on the centre line. It's very easy to steer this aircraft, so we're easily fast enough there. Nose up.
Check gear.
Gear up.
Check gear.
Flaps can start coming up. We just monitor the attitude of the aeroplane. We can pull the throttle back. So we're just easing the throttle back until it's not flashing red anymore, basically. So we're looking at the pound feet of torque that we're putting through the propeller shaft, I should say. Okay, so wind the flaps out completely. We've just gone past flap range on the airspeed. So now we're just in a sustained climb. We can go back to auto on fuel pumps and auto on ignition. Below 10,000 feet, if we're commercial traffic, you would have the landing lights on. We can turn the taxi lights off. But we're just going to leave the lights as they are. We can have a look over here just so you see what we've got. So there is a landing light. We're not commercial traffic, so we're not going to worry about that. Although we didn't put the strobes on, did we? We should have had the strobes on the runway, really. Okay, so we're en route to our first waypoint. We're coming up through 3,000 feet. Let's just trim the airplane then, a bit of elevator trim. Okay, so if we go autopilot on, so you can see it's lit up above the primary flight display. Yaw damper on. We can go nav mode. You can see the aeroplane's gently banking left to reacquire the route. So if we zoom in to see that, it's going to bank right almost as soon as it finishes banking left, but we're not going to worry. So we wanted to get up to 6,000 feet as well while we're en route. So we're going to do a flight level change. And we did it just in time. Look, we were right on the limit of the airframe. So it's putting in some climb rate now, so that will help with maintaining airspeed. So it's at the point you select flight level change, you'll see the speed marker appear on the indicated airspeed ribbon. So you can see we're just going onto the GPS track now. It's very clever, look, it's actually acquired it on the turn, which is a remarkably difficult thing to do. So coming up through 4,000 feet. So hopefully we'll be at 6,000 by the time we get to Hermit, and that would make sense for the trek. So if we go and have a look at the flight plan, notice it has this hold at Hermit, and then when we choose to exit the hold, we'll continue on to trees. So if we go and have a look on the map at that, trees is on the line when you exit the hold. Yeah, so we'll just delete that out of the flight plan, or you could do a direct to trees to come out of the hold. But typically you just delete the hold. Okay, coming up towards 5,000 feet altitude. It's doing flight level change. think we can change the speed. Yeah, we can manipulate the speed with the roller. While you're in flight level change mode, you can manipulate the speed to get a higher climb rate, or momentarily higher climb rate. So if we say we want 170 knots, it will convert that into climb rate look to get rid of the speed. We're now approaching 6,000 feet, so the altitude selected icon is flashing and the plane will level out. So we need to be careful about throttle now, because we are going to accelerate. So we're going to pull the throttle back. You can see the rate of change on the indicated airspeed. So as you are moderating the power that you're putting through the propeller, you can keep an eye on that. So we're at 6,000, we're at the altitude we should be to come into this hold according to the diagram here. So it says, it actually says above 6,000 on the way through here. So let's turn off the centering on little nav map so we can see this happen. So, all being well, we should do a right turn and enter this hold pattern. We should also be able to see Ells Willits out there in the distance. The idea of this hold, obviously, is if you were a bigger aeroplane, for example, or you coming in at higher altitude over the hills, you may come into the hold at, say, 10,000 feet, and you can follow the hold as you descend. So there you go. It's actually, you'll notice it's changing the radius of the hold according to the speed we're doing. So we are now in the hold. It's cool, isn't it? It's very good. So again, this is all on autopilot. I'm not flying the aeroplane. Should we put the... Oh, we're not going to be using radio beacons. I was just going to say it might have been nice to turn on the sounds for the markers, but we're not going to be using any radio beacons for this approach. Okay, while we're just doing the downwind leg of the hold, let's have a look at, it's easier to see on little nav map as I said earlier. So we need to be down to 4,000 feet basically by the time we get to T's. And if you have a look on the chart, or sorry, on the data, the elevation of the airfield is 2,000 feet. So that puts us 2,000 feet above the runway at 5 miles out. So we're just going to do manage the descent down as we need to. I'm not sure if we get the green banana on here, we'll soon find out. Because you could, in descent, as long as you're managing your airspeed appropriately, you could use vertical speed mode to come down at the rate you choose. Or you could use speed mode, where you choose a speed and then moderate power to control descent rate. So we're just waiting to fly the end of the hold. I think it's a 5-mile hold. If we're going to have a look at the chart, we'll probably confirm that. Yeah, 5 miles. So in little nav map, it's got this as actually part of that procedure. So I didn't draw the hold in. It's built into the procedure for the RNAV approach into runway 34. Okay, so we're making the turn on the far end of the hold pattern now. It's good, isn't it? So remember, we need to switch back to manual fuel pumps and ignition when we are on approach. So we'll leave that until we get to the is it the T's waypoint? Yeah. Oh, sorry, trees. So we're just coming around the back end of the hold. So we need to see about getting out of the hold. See, so we'll wait until we're straightened up a bit, because otherwise it will just continue on round and round and round all day long. So we go into the flight plan, and we're going to alter the flight plan. So we're going to clear the hold, remove hold, enter. Okay, we're going straight for trees now. Okay. So it's going to continue on towards Hermit first. It's still in GPS mode. It's heading for Hermit, then trees. Straightening out. And we want to be... Now, what did we say we wanted to be? So 4,000 feet for trees. Okay, so we'll go and set our altitude. So I've been setting this number over here by rolling the altitude selector. And let's have a play with vertical speed mode down. So we've gone to vertical speed mode. So we've set it for 500 feet a minute. Do we get a marker show up? I don't think we do. I'm going to pull the throttle back more. So if we said go for 1500 feet a minute, do we get the circle show up? I don't think, unless there's an option that I'm forgetting about that allows it to appear. I can't remember. There may be an option in here. PFD options maybe? Nope. I don't want to meddle with it too much. Okay, so it's now going over to grab the course. We're going a bit fast, so I'm going to reduce the power even further.
Check gear.
We're getting check gear because I pulled the throttle back too much. We also need to go and go to manual on the ignition and the fuel pumps. Go and put the landing lights on. So it has got to 4,000 feet, so we need to increase power again, just to hold speed, although we want to be gently slowing down now anyway.
Check gear.
Again, I pulled the throttle back too much there. Okay, so we're just following the route in now to the airfield. Can we see it out in front of us? About 4,000 feet, a little bit ahead of T's. Or trees, sorry, I keep calling it T's, it's trees. So we're about 6-7 miles out. So we've got to drop another 2,000 feet to get to the runway. So again, rather than use the autopilot all the way in, we can fly this if we really want to. So you can see there's a fake glide slope, like a simulated glide slope has appeared. So if we come off the autopilot now, let's just fly it in by hand. You can see the airfield directly in front of us on top of the hill there. It's a little bit bumpy actually today. So what I'm going to do is follow the diamond to maintain the descent to the airfield. You can see we're off to the left of the GPS track at the moment. It really is quite bumpy, isn't it? It's unexpected because there's hardly any wind showing on the ground. Or at least at the departure airfield there was no wind. So we're just coming back onto the GPS track and we're continuing to descend. You can see sort of 500-600 feet a minute is keeping it fairly honest.
Check gear.
So I'm going to start slowing down. as much as we sensibly can. If we really need to slow down, we can force the aeroplane to side slip. So I'm just gently pushing the nose one way. You can see the speed is falling off. You can do it quite dramatically if you really need to. And we'll wind that back out and we'll put the gear down. Now we're a bit slower. It's quite a high tree line here. So we're a bit too fast. So what we might choose to do... Well, I think we're okay actually. We've just got into flaps range now. So flaps are going down. But the speed is not coming off. Yeah, we're too high and too fast. So that's just practice with the airplane. So we'll go back to the flaps we would normally have for takeoff, which will be 20 degrees. We won't go out of flap speed range, but we'll just do a quick orbit. Go the reciprocal direction. This is where the GPS map comes in so handy. So rather than be brave and try to throw the airplane at the runway, we're going to fly the opposite direction for a few moments and then come back in. Just being careful not to overspeed the flaps too much. This airplane is so quick. Just trimming the nose down a little. It's interesting. I often fall into this hole of, because I jump into different airplanes all the time in the simulator, kind of jack of all trades, master of none. The only aircraft I've really become very proficient with is the 737, purely because I have flown it a lot. But yeah, jumping into different airplanes all the time is a recipe for disaster. So we're only at 2100 feet, look, so we need to make sure we climb a little bit as we come around this corner. Keep an eye on the airspeed as we climb and turn. Let's have a look out sideways. You can see the airfield over there in the trees. There it is. Turn back in again. And we're in a much better place with speed this time. Having said that, because we're coming in quite steeply for that tree line, we are picking up speed even with full flaps and gear down. We're faster than we would like to be, so again we're going to side slip. To get into a better situation. There we go. So as soon as you side slip, you destroy some of the lift from the wings, so the airplane sinks. So we're just going to try to miss the trees and come in. There we go. Reverse and put the wheel brakes on and remove the reverses. And get off the runway. Put the brakes on while we go and deal with the strobes, the landing lights. And we should be good to just roll out gently to the parking area. It's a well-modelled airfield, isn't it? Considering it's one of the stock ones. So you need to be careful of the wing on this building. Parking brake on. Kill the engine. And we did. Oh, actually, I've forgotten to turn off the air conditioning, so I did things a little bit out of order there. But yeah, so there we go. Every flight, obviously, you get better and better with an aeroplane at learning its procedures and its quirks. Obviously, with this one, it doesn't slow down in a hurry, because you can see that. Look how streamlined it is. So it's no accident, and it's quite heavy because it's got this whacking great engine in it. So it's no accident that it takes a while to slow down. Anyway, there we go. As you'll notice, I forgot to put the flaps up before anybody tells me. It's a good point, actually. Let's see how well simulated it is. If I put the flap lever up, does it do anything? No, it doesn't. So if we put the battery back on, is that enough? Yes, it is. Interesting. Okay, and we'll turn the battery back off. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. So it's a bit better look at the FSR500, or the Piper M500, really. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We had a look at guidance. We looked at the tablet. We didn't put passengers on board because, as I said, they're a bit of a pain. We did look at pulling a flight plan through, though, and then programming more of the route into the Garmin. So yeah, all good fun. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.